Tables. Have you heard of them? Today I'm gonna build one, not any kind of table, a DND table. What do I know of DND? I know it's a game. Brennan Lee Mulligan. My brother's birthday is coming up in about 2 weeks, and I haven't done anything about it yet. I'm gonna build a table and hopefully finish it in 2 weeks without him finding out somehow, while also recording a whole video. It'll be easy. At the same time I had this idea, a game called Baldur's Gate 3 came out. It's basically D&D, but in video game form. Now, he's been spending all of his time on this. This sent me into a panic, making me think, oh no, he'll never want to play D&D on a table again. I have no other ideas. What's the point of even trying if he won't use it? If Gus stood up, would he be taller than me? I know what potassium is, but what does it taste like? I'll make it work for board games as well. And to make sure my brother doesn't find out, I've employed this guard dog. Now to the plans. I've designed this table to avoid using the table saw, cause mine is broken and scary, and I like my fingers. Here's the plan. The plan is to build a frame with foldable legs and have an offset in the center pieces so a board can lay on top. The outer border will be fastened in place while the inner piece will be removable, having both a grid side and just a regular side matching the outer border. I haven't actually decided whether I want to put trim around the edges, but it's in this design for right now. A large picture frame type piece will then squeeze everything all together. There's also more complicated components such as the dice trays, which I have no idea how I'm going to do yet. Now, will this design work? I have no idea. I've never built a table before, and I am by no means a professional. Wood. I've already made some changes to the plan, and instead of using hardwood, I'll be using these pieces of live edge pine. They were on sale for about 33 bucks a board, and I think that they'll add a lot more to the medieval type style. I'm using pocket holes with basic construction screws on the frame since this is primarily construction material and you won't be seeing any of these faces. The middle pieces of the frame will be set down 3/4 of an inch so that the boards I lay on top will be level with the edges. And here is me setting up close shots only to put my hand directly in front of the camera. I did this multiple times. Here's the frame fully assembled. I'm not going to add any borders around this. Instead, I'm just going to router the edge and paint it black. I then cut the legs to length and glued smaller pieces to the base where the hinges will attach. I cut the middle piece out of some plywood and then stood around for a long time because I was completely lost and forgot what I was doing. Okay, let's check in with Gus.
His name's Gus. Gus, what you doing? Gus, what you doing?
I'm running behind schedule a bit. I got busy, and now I have 4 days to complete this whole project, and it is still in many different pieces. I thought I'd show the old board. Oh, God. This is the old one. It's fairly broken. Fun development. This thing doesn't turn on properly, so now to get it started, it goes this way. So this is awesome and very safe.
After the border pieces were cut, I then used the belt sander to adjust the width so that they could fit properly.
I got the border cut, and there's a little bit of wiggle room in here. So when I wrap the fabric around, hopefully that'll be enough. If I have to, I can sand it more. These aren't perfect, but the fabric will go right over that. So unless you push specifically on that crease, you hopefully won't notice. We've definitely hit another issue. This board is not big enough according to my measurements. So the plan is I'm gonna cut this in half to see how the max amount of stretch I can get. In the middle of them, I'm going to use this board, and I'm just gonna kind of squeeze it in between so I can, and this is 1 inch thick, so I'll do 2 of these, and then that'll add 2 inches to the board, and it'll be a nice detail that It's definitely a detail. This probably makes no sense as I'm explaining it. Gotten to a point where we've added the fabric so it loops around and it's being pinched by the inside, and then there's screws on the outside, and then when those boards go on top, it'll further sandwich all of this down.
Next, I cut the live edge pieces and did the glue ups. I actually had to do these glue ups multiple times because it turns out the glue that I originally used was old, and so I had to redo it with some better Gorilla Glue. While waiting for the glue to dry, I sanded up the legs and routed the edges to make it look a bit nicer. I am running out of time at this point, and I have begun to panic build. And for the dice trays, I did it in the most complicated and time-consuming way possible. I first drilled a hole, and then I routed out a little recess in the back where another board would go underneath. And here is me somehow not realizing that I have completely burnt out the drill bit that I was using. I then cut a hole all the way through with a handheld jigsaw, and then I used my spindle sander to make it nice and smooth. I then added a routed edge to match the legs. After the frame pieces were all done, I used pocket screws on the bottom as well as a lot of glue in order to make a solid frame. After everything had set, I then removed any pieces of bark and sanded all the corners so that they would line up. Here's what the board looked like before staining. Now that all the pieces are complete, all I need to do is finish and assemble. I used a Varathane Jacobine wood stain and somehow managed to spill it almost immediately. Oh, no. After applying the wood stain, I did notice that there was a fair amount of scratches, and this is just because I didn't quite sand to the level that I wanted to and didn't quite realize that they would be apparent when I applied the wood stain. If I was to go back and spend any more time on any process during this, it would definitely been sanding. For the legs and frame of the table, I painted it with Bear Ultra Scuff Defense in the color of limousine leather. It's just black, nothing fancy. And I did 2 coats with sanding in between. After the stain was dry, I sprayed on Varathane Professional Semi-Gloss. After I would spray the Varathane, I would then let it dry inside because outside was just too cold that day. I made the bottom of the dice trays by cutting out rectangles out of the 1/8 thick inch plywood I had. I cut matching squares out of the vinyl that I had. I then used an Easy Tack spray to temporarily adhere the vinyl to the board. Be careful with the amount of Easy Tack spray that you use, because I noticed that if I put too much, it would seep through parts of the vinyl that I would have to then wipe up with just water and soap. When I screw these boards into the bottom of the frame, they'll hold the vinyl in place. Anything involving the vinyl, I just attached via staples. Here I'm tightening the vinyl around the border so that it looks nice and flat after everything is assembled. I attached the live edge piece to the frame by just using more pocket holes. I wasn't too sure how this would hold up, but as long as I drilled the pocket holes deep enough, it seemed to be very strong and secure. I also wrapped the vinyl around the middle board and used staples to secure it around the edges.
I've made a mistake. Can you spot it? No. Let me help you out a bit. It's a bit tall. I don't know what I was thinking when I was planning this. I measured the legs as the overall height of the table, not thinking that the table would have thickness. So now it's just really tall. I've accidentally made a craps table. I don't know how to play craps. The fix for this is quite easy. I just take off the legs and cut them to the proper length. But there's another problem. This table can dance a little bit. The hinges have a little bit of leeway after they're locked in place, so it kind of gives it a little bit of wiggle room, especially left and right. So I'm gonna have to figure a way to sturdy up those legs while making sure the table is still collapsible. The whiteboard grid material finally showed up. It's definitely the same month. I was quite disappointed with this. We've tried some markers on it and it's kind of left some residue. Are you okay back there? We've tried some markers on it and it left some residue, which is not great. I want to try it with whiteboard solution This was kind of expensive, so I don't want to just throw it out and look for something else. This is what I'm going with. I'm not going to attach it in a permanent way. I'll probably just use tape. The print has a bunch of weird smearing lines on it, but I'm going to cut it now and fit it so it fits.
I should probably mention that at this point, I have given the table to my brother. We're way past the date that I wanted to finish this by, but it's whatever at this point. He knows that the table exists, he's just waiting for it to be fixed and for all the pieces to come in. I cut the whiteboard material to have a slight bit of overhang on all the edges. I attached it by using different strips of double-sided masking tape, trying to pull the material as tight as I could as I moved along. I trimmed the edges, but still left a certain amount of overhang, because I wanted to tape them down and make it be a smooth corner. I had first tried some red electrical tape. However, that was not strong enough and it kept on lifting, so instead, I used a super glue and put that on the whiteboard material itself and attached that to the board and then wrapped the whole thing with the red electrical tape to make it look more finished. To fix the stability issue, I made some cross members that attached the legs together. They are still collapsible, however, when you collapse them, they do have to have both the switches pushed at the same time. I also placed small pieces of fabric where the table legs touch the table. This makes the hinges tighter when they lock in, then reducing some of the wiggle. The table can now hold my weight, which is good enough because it's no longer going to fall apart. And now the table is finished.
I destroyed my knee.